Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhart. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde. Hello, my loves. It's no secret right now that the world stage is like the craziest movie we have ever seen with the things that have been happening. And starting off 2025, it seems like every day it has been a new disaster or catastrophe. And I want to talk about this right away, right at the beginning of the year, because as I talked about in my 2025 episode, this is going to be one of the most transformative years we've had yet, collectively and obviously individually, because us individuals make up that collective, right? And I want to talk about in this episode how you can help yourself, because it can be very easy to be overtaken by the energies of fear and uncertainty as we're watching a lot of this unfold. And for some of you, real life experiencing these things. And so it's very important that as we move forward, we use our discernment. And in order to use your discernment, you must be present. It isn't just about turning off the TV anymore or the news channel that you're watching, because a lot of us now get our news from social media. A lot of us don't even watch mainstream media anymore. And while social media has more truth, right? There's more freedom. It doesn't necessarily mean that is the best place to get it either. It's not about being uninformed either, or living in the delusion that none of this is happening. It's about not getting entangled and enmeshed with it. I know for me personally, if I am on TikTok, or if I happen to be at the gym and the news is on, or anything like that, and I get too enmeshed in it, I get too enwrapped in it, too focused on it, I start to feel their fear, their grief, their pain, even their excitement, if that's what I'm watching, right? It's very easy for us, the higher the frequencies are that we are immersed in, and in the energy that we are in today, there's just really no separation anymore. We can feel almost instantly what is happening. And our body doesn't know that we're not there. When we start to feel something, our body doesn't know that we're not there. Our body doesn't know that that's not what we're experiencing. And that is a powerful understanding. Because this year, there is going to be so many radical shifts and changes in our external reality, in our collective reality, that it's going to test everything in you to be able to think, speak, and act from a space of faith, and from the space of the desired reality that you are wanting to embrace. I need you to just sit with that for a second. We can send compassion. We can send love. We can hold the vision of there not being fires or floods or terrorist attacks or anything else that may happen. We can see the world in a loving place. But some of these events are destined. Some of these events are meant to happen. Right? I talked about in 2025 how there is going to be a mass exodus on the planet. There is going to be a lot of people who choose to exit this game. And that is something that is a double-edged sword because the human part of us is going to grieve. The human part of us doesn't want to lose anybody, doesn't want to lose friends, it doesn't want to lose loved ones. There's someone I know just yesterday who messaged me and telling me that he lost his friend that he didn't see coming. Like it was very sudden and unexpected. And these are the things that are going to happen. It can happen because of fires. It can happen because of natural disasters. It can happen because of terrorist attacks. It can happen because of multiple things, people getting illnesses, freak accidents. When a soul chooses to exit, it's going to take the path of least resistance. So whatever thing is available, it's going to attract it to it, right? So this is why it's always important to remember that nobody's life is ever taken from them. It was a choice. Their soul made a choice. Every single time, there is no exception to this understanding. And I need that to be clear. That does not ease the pain of the heart and the heartbreak that the physical human aspect of us is going to experience. It doesn't negate that. It doesn't make it go away, but it should help to ease your soul that the things that are happening on the planet, whether you recognize it or not, are actually happening for us. It doesn't mean that we still can't hold the frequency of that in which we seek, but it is an invitation for us to learn and master a few things. Now, two of these are things I've been talking about for the past 2 years. The guides have been asking me to talk about these things for the last 2 years, which is being able to live in faith and to make peace with uncertainty. This basically equals living in a surrendered state of being. The guides have been talking about this through me for 2 years, that this is what you should be working on. This is what you should be practicing. This is what you should be intending to master, because just that alone is going to allow you to thrive when others are living and merely trying to survive. It is the shift. The thing that newly, starting last year and more predominantly this year, is understanding that you get to choose what reality you live in, what reality you see. We have to start to see that our current circumstances, that our current reality is on a frequency. And when you think of frequency, I want you to think of a radio station. This is an analogy that guides have used through me for years. But I want you to see it as a radio station. That radio station was built upon the past beliefs, your past default assumptions, right? Because number one, you can't manifest what you want. You can only manifest what you are. So internally, there has to be a shift in your frequency. And when that happens, you are going to have an outward projection of a different reality. Because when you move into a different frequency, it is a different version of you on a different reality. The best example that I like to share, there's two. So one, if you've ever done one of my transmissions, at meditation transmissions, and you heard me go into a temple where there's a hallway of doors, think about each one of those doors being a different version of Earth and a different version of you, right? And sometimes those doors can lead us to other planets, other realities, other civilizations, and different versions of us that aren't necessarily human. But for this particular example, just imagine that you walk into a hall of doors, and each one of those doors opens a different version of you on a different earth or a different version of reality. This is something that will begin to happen for people. They will start to realize this. They'll start to be called to this. This is us exploring our multidimensionality, because we are multidimensional. There are infinite versions of us and infinite versions of this game that we are currently playing. Another great example is if you have Apple TV, there is a show called Dark Matter. And the reason why I point out this show is because it's a great example of whatever they were thinking or feeling, more or less, right? Whatever they were feeling, whatever they were focused on, whatever their state of being was. When they opened that door, that was the reality they walked into. So if they were in fear or they were in doubt or they were in scarcity, right? Or if they were desperate for something, they would open to a reality that reflected that back to them. And sometimes those realities were very doomsday, they were very scary. But when they focused on the loving feeling, when they focused on what it was that they wanted to feel, when they opened that door, they found their way back to the space or to the reality that they were desiring. But it had to come internally. They had to master that internally before they opened the door. Another show, I believe it's on Hulu, is called Being Erica. It's a Canadian-based show, but it's another example of how we can move through time and space, right? Because there's never a time either, by the way. This is another misconception. There's never amount of time. You're never waiting on something. The universe isn't working on your behalf behind the scenes. There's no delay between where you are and where you want to be anymore. There really isn't. It's a very short, if anything. And what that isn't a length of time that we travel or preparing or it's not time yet. It's when you are ready. See, the thing manifests when you cross the bridge of consciousness, when you know inside of your being that you already have everything that you need internally. It's already yours, right? So again, we're coming from that space of acting as if, and when we act as if, we think, we speak, we act, we move, we feel as if the things that we're desiring are already true and happening for us. When we start to do that from a default perspective, meaning you're not trying, because when you're trying, you are implying that there is a lack of something. You are automatically defaulting to, I don't currently have it, and I need to try to obtain it. But when you just know that it's already yours, even if it's not in this reality, and you act and speak and think from that state of being, very, very, very quickly will your reality shift completely. I experienced this last year in a very, very profound way. Before that, I would have these moments of it, right? But I wasn't be able to be consistent. Well, last year was the longest length of time I have ever gone where I consistently was able to hold that state of being and operate from it. So I can tell you that it is possible. Is it necessarily easy? No, nothing worthwhile ever is. But it's not hard either. But it does require you to be super present and very self-aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling and what's happening in your reality, how you are responding to what is being projected from your being, what is being mirrored back to you. It's never about reacting to the circumstances of what's happening on the world stage or what's happening in your own reality. It's instead going, how would I act and be if this wasn't happening? If the world was a peaceful, loving place, how would I go about my day? You wouldn't be sitting there watching that devastation unfold. Now, I know that this isn't going to be an easy ask, right? Especially if you are someone who is experiencing that devastation. But even if you are someone who's experiencing that devastation, you can have a knowing inside of you that everything's going to be okay, that the universe never takes anything from you or gives you anything that isn't serving you, and that there is a greater purpose for this, and that that will soon be revealed. And all you have to do is hold the inner knowing that you will be supported, that you will be taken care of, that everything will work out, that there is a reason for this experience. There's a reason it's happening. What is it trying to teach you? Right? There's a reason why the phoenix rises from the ashes. There's a reason why firefighters burn grass, or not even firefighters, farmers. There's a reason why farmers burn the fields after harvest, right? The fire actually helps the soil. It helps the soil. What grows after a fire is usually hardier. It's usually more abundant because everything has to go through a transformation. And while none of these experiences that we are seeing now or will be seeing this year are going to be easy to witness, and if you're going to be someone who goes through it, it's holding that knowing that whatever is happening for you. And if it's happening to someone else in your family or in your friends or in your community, it's about having the energetic boundaries of not getting enmeshed or sucked into the fear or the devastation or the suffering, but instead hold space. Hold space, which means that you are willing to sit with someone in the dark. You're not there to fix it. You're not there to make it better. We aren't here as light workers to fix anything. As light workers, as healers, as channelers, we're not here to fix anything. Nobody's broken. We aren't broken. We are here to learn to hold space, to sit with others in the dark so they can break. Because it is in the breaking that allows us to see the very thing we couldn't. It allows the pieces in smaller chunks to be presented in front of us and for us to choose how to put ourselves back together. Because anytime we're breaking, that means there's an expansion taking place. I remember a couple of years ago, a very good friend of mine, she said something broke in her dishwasher and she got super excited. She's like, I love it when things break. And I said, why? She goes, it's a good thing. It means there's expansion happening in my life. And I was like, yeah, it actually does. What a good shift in perspective. So when you're breaking, when someone else is breaking, when something breaks in your life, it's because you have outgrown that container. And there has to be space made, right? There's an expansion taking place. You're breaking out of the limits that you had set for yourself. Our world is going through an expansion. This reality is going through an expansion. And so there is going to be a lot of devastation. We have to do clearing at a very grand scale, right? This is something that we all chose collectively, internally, or it wouldn't be happening. I know that can be hard to understand. You're like, I didn't sign up for this. This wasn't on my bingo card. I didn't vote for this. Your soul did. There was a part of you inside that said, I want to see the world in this state. I want to be free. I want to be abundant. I want love. I want peace. I want unity. Does that mean there won't be things that happen that are unpleasant or uncomfortable? Of course not. But internally, enough of us had to make a choice of what we wanted to feel. And in that, we have to now break our world apart so that we can clear out what's not serving and make space for the higher frequencies. And it's oftentimes when people have to surrender or are on their knees in surrender that they meet the best version of themselves. Or they meet God, which is a reflection of you because you are an aspect of God. They meet the Creator, they meet that oneness. I just finished a private mentorship contract with one of my favorite students. She has been through mentorship with me 4 times for 4 different reasons, and she is just killing it right now. But not that long ago, she messaged me and said she had this experience with this big white light. And I'm not going to share too much of her experience, but I knew in that moment when she was describing to me this overwhelming feeling of love and abundance and oneness and what she witnessed, that she had touched source, that she had touched that oneness, because it's this experience that I've had viscerally. So many people this year are going to experience that in some way, shape, or form. And oftentimes that comes from transformation or devastation or someone being brought to their knees in surrender or choosing to surrender. You don't have to be taken to the edge or the brink of nothingness. You don't need to wait till something brings you to your knees. You can choose to surrender. You can choose to let go of control. You can choose to say, I know that my reality is a projection of my past accepted beliefs. And if I want to change my reality, I have to change my internal belief systems. I have to change my frequency. I have to change the station that I'm listening to. I have to choose internally what frequency that I want to emanate from my being. And that is something that I am being shown is one of the most helpful things for people to practice this year, in addition to making peace with uncertainty, seeing it as an adventure, knowing that everything's uncertain, and choosing to see through the eyes of faith instead of fear, right? If you haven't mastered faith and you haven't mastered befriending uncertainty this year, where just disasters or circumstances in your life don't derail you, then that is something that you have to work on as well. But the third thing that will be added in is people learning that they are multidimensional, learning that they have a choice. Here's another thing. I was talking to my best friend yesterday on Marco, and we were talking about this. There's a lot of prophets out there. There's a lot of people who predict what's going to happen. When I do my energy forecast, like I did in 2020 for 2025, I don't give specifics. I'm never guided to give specifics about when something's going to happen or that something's going to happen. I keep it very general, and I do that for a reason. It is very rare that I feel called to give specifics about world events because I think that all it does is invoke fear and anxiety of people waiting for said event to take place. And this is why when I channel, it always comes through very general, as in, yes, there will be disasters. Yes, there'll be a mass exodus, but we don't need to know the details. We need to let go and allow things to unfold as they need to. That is the best expression when it's given. Now, are there people out there who do give predictions and people who claim to be prophets? Yes, but I need you to hear me with this, okay? How can so many different psychics, different prophets give different scenarios as to what's going to happen? How can that be? How can they? I've had people show me, oh, I see us going into an apocalyptic world. I never get that, not once. Other people see a utopian, right? Mine is more of a kind of a middle ground. It's more of an internal utopia versus necessarily an external, but it produces a much more harmonious and peaceful reality of growth and community. Important thing to hear is that they're all correct. I'm going to say that again. They are all correct because every reality that you can imagine that we could collectively go in exists. You get to choose what reality you want to experience. That is powerful. And that happens by you changing the frequency within you. This is what I'm being asked to focus on with my clients this year. This is what we are collectively being asked to master this year. Learning how to turn our frequency, to tune our frequency to the world and to that in which we seek, to that in which we desire to be. If you look out in the world and you don't like what you see, go look in the mirror and say, how can I change? How can I be the change? What do I want to see other people do, and how and am I doing that? How would I think I want to act? How do I want people to act? How do I want people to speak to me? How do I want to be treated in the world? And I need to look in the mirror and say, am I doing that for to myself and to others? Am I being the change? Because if I'm not being the change, I'm not going to see the change. Everybody wants change, but not everybody's willing to change. So this is the message that I wanted to bring across in this podcast was, yes, this year is going to be scary looking. You could absolutely go into fear. You can absolutely be riddled in anxiety and uncertainty. You could absolutely go down the doomsday rabbit hole of we're going to be an apocalypse, or we're going to go to war, or we're going to do all these things. And I have to say, we've already been in war. World War III has been happening for quite a while now. And when we look back 5, 10 years from now, this time will be considered the frequency wars, because there are higher ups, elites, whatever name you want to call them, that are pumping out fear frequencies, that are creating circumstances to invoke a state of fear. It's your choice whether you actually live in that state and reside on the frequency that they are providing. Or you can choose to say, I'm not going to be in fear. I'm going to know everything's going to be okay and everything's going to be taken care of. I'm going to look at it through the lens of faith, because you always have a choice. Uncertainty is always going to be. Everything in this world is uncertain. Nothing is certain. Your job, your marriage, your home, where you live, your health, nothing is ever certain. Nothing is ever guaranteed. So whatever it is that you're fearing is uncertain. You can choose to also look at it through the lens of faith, because faith is also uncertain. You have to learn how to shift your frequency. This is the most powerful thing. And it's something that we each know how to do. It's just that your default is to assume the worst case, to assume it's not going to work out, to assume it's not going to happen for you, to assume you're not worthy or not enough. What if you just decided to assume that you were? You have to change your default settings. And that comes with continuous practice of realigning your frequency. It's not bypassing, it is realigning your frequency. This is what is. I'm not going to react to the circumstances of what is. I don't like it. All I have to do is accept that that's okay. This is what is. I had past beliefs that I accepted that created this. And if this is what is not something that makes you feel peace, it doesn't excite you, it's not something that you want, you need to change your beliefs so that what you project, what is assumed, can consume you. Whatever you assume will consume you. If you assume you're abundant, abundance will consume you. If you assume you're in lack, lack will consume you. If you assume you're not enough, not enoughness, everything around you will reflect that back to you. It will consume you. What you assume will consume you. You have to change your default assumptions. And we do that by changing our frequency, so that what we vibrate out from that frequency can create a reality that is more aligned to the truth of who we are, truth of who you are. And this is something that I want you to come back to. Every time something happens in the world and you start to feel yourself getting entangled in it, you don't need to shout from the rooftops that this isn't okay, that what's happening isn't okay. You just have to hold space. If that means you be there for someone who's breaking and whose world's falling apart without fixing it, then do it. If If someone's asking for help and you feel called to help, help. If you feel called to be a volunteer, go volunteer. If you feel called to help people clean up or, to be on the front lines, then do it. Listen to your intuition. Inspired action is when something just feels natural and effortless. Like, oh, yep, this is what I'm going to do right now. There's no question about it. There's no confusion about it. There's no back and forth about it. So surrender, allow life to unfold in front of you and listen to that inspired action, the thing that feels natural, that feels like, oh, this is just the next thing I'm going to do, even if you don't know how to do it. But choose to be present, choose to be self-aware, choose to witness your thoughts and feelings and actions so that you can change them. That's the only space you can change them from, by the way, is in the present moment. When standing at the crossroads of how am I going to speak this time? How am I going to act this time? How am I going to feel this time? It's a choice. I'm sending all of you so much love, and to any of those who are physically affected by any of the natural disasters that have taken place or any other life circumstance that may be causing you heartbreak and pain, I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by JohannaBurkhart.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.